ourselves up for this. Okay, guys, we've got it. Right livelihood, I think it's bigger. It's often talked about, and in chapter 8, you will see the discussions that Gregory Kramer has about right livelihood frequently being connected to, associated with, and relevant to career or work path, right livelihood, or one's way, worthy and noble way of making a living. I think it's about actually a lot more. And so I want to talk about the way I see right livelihood. It's really, for me, much more about, let's say, correct exchange. That which is offered, that which is received. Really, can you get this idea? In work, we frequently offer a function, a task, a skill, a craft, right, an expertise. And in exchange for that expertise, we then receive some kind of remuneration, which might be money, might be an exchange in kind, might be, well, if you do this, then you will not have to be indebted in some other way, right? There's all kinds of exchanges. I think right livelihood is about that wise, correct, skillful, and loving exchange, not only as it relates to you, but really dramatically, once again, on this noble eightfold path, as it relates to others. And so not only are we looking at right monies in that exchange, we're looking at right behaviors in the offering. Are we killing? Are we using weaponry? Are we in human trafficking? Are we in gambling? Are we doing things that ultimately are going to be contributing, no matter how much money we make then, right, to the destruction of our mankind, to the destruction of the planet? We have to make those considerations. My husband worked at Inland Steel, as an example, at the beginning of his career. And in that career, we watched thousands of gallons of crude oil being dumped into Lake Michigan, directly by Inland Steel, and then, of course, by Bethlehem Steel, U.S. Steel. It was actually so distressing for me personally that I felt physically, actually, I believe, sick from it. I could not participate, even as audience. And of course, we know that those steel mills generated thousands and thousands of pounds of steel for cars, and the cars have contributed dramatically, of course, to the, but not only, I don't want to put it on the car industry alone, it's not true, to things like global warming, right? And so wrong action leading to wrong action, leading to wrong action. Was the steel the problem? I don't think so. Were the people who wanted to work to make a living the problem? I don't think so. Was the understanding of the damage that was being done and the willingness of all those steel mills to pay the fines part of the problem? Yes, I think it was. Was the United States, for example, unwillingness to fine correctly, right? To say you can't keep doing this to the lakes. We weren't there at that time, right? We had not evolved as it related to the realities of this earth as our true mother. And so, right, one thing leading to another is really the point. And so right livelihood, then for me, isn't just about career, it's about the way we conduct our lives, right? The way we live, whether it's in exchange for money or whether it's in exchange for merits, karmic benefits versus debt, whether there's a constant exchange actually occurring. And so livelihood for me, let's make it bigger. Let's make it the way in which one conducts for the benefit of all beings, one's life. We're going to be talking about things like recycling. We're going to be talking about things like being kind as a part and taking actions compassionately as a part of right livelihood. Uh, I think we're a society already a little bit too dedicated to the exchange of monies. And I think it'd be so easy to go, well, it's a good job because I make an 80 or 180 or 500K. I don't think that qualifies in any way towards right livelihood. In fact, I look at my brother's job, my brother is a manager in a casino, Harris Casino, now Caesar's Palace Casino in Joliet, Illinois, fairly poor city. And he's noticing, as an example, the effects of watching people walk in with their little bits of money. Remember, it's a poor community, losing everything. By the way, consistently. Not one time and then you're big, right? Losing and losing and losing and coming in the next month and throwing, there goes their Social Security benefits again, doing it over and over. And there is a kind of sickness for him that I see. He can barely bear to witness and participate and is saying, I've got to get out of here. And in fact, I'll tell you the job he actually has considered, being a janitor in a school. Right livelihood. Why? Why? Why would this guy give up this big management, gets to wear the three-piece, right? To say, I got to get out of here. I'm going to quit and I'm going to go be a janitor in a school. And by the way, he did that. He went on an interview. And do you know what the school said? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And he said, what? I would be happy here knowing that I'm of benefit. I would be happy cleaning up after the kids. Right? That's right livelihood. I want you to think about those factors. What's in that that makes that wise, skillful, meaningful, and making him happy? We get to include that as one of our criterion. True joy and gladness versus this muckety-muck job where he watches people in depravity for the day. And then they do it again, and then they do it again. I want you to think about what are those factors as we sit, because remember, more than, but including our large statement of exchange. What am I offering to the world? What am I taking? What am I offering? How am I contributing? And what am I using? What am I consuming? And what am I producing? Would really literally be another way to think about that, wouldn't it? What am I consuming versus what am I producing? We're going to sit with that a little bit, see if we can't invite some reflections of right livelihood. This very large chapter, we're going to be just touching on parts, as Gregory spent a lot of time. It is the fifth of the Noble Eightfold Path. It is after right view, which is critical to right livelihood. By the way, if you can't see clearly how things are of benefit, if you can't set the motivations to do so, like my brother, it's only taken him 20-something years to go, whoops, wait a minute, this is not working out for me or others, right? And he drives about 40 miles. So just talking about consuming. The job he wants to get as a janitor, guess what, about 3 miles from the house. Another consideration. What's it taking? What's it cost? What is its ultimate benefit? Right view is understood to be one of the essential components of right livelihood. You got to see it clearly, and then you have to use right effort. Right effort is the other one, and Gregory mentions that. These three are a kind of intertwined rope, because without right effort, you cannot find your way to right livelihood. Okay, there's the beginning of that for us, so we can set our stage for our practice. So let's prepare to sit. I'm going to see if I can't just find a really short little piece by Wendell Berry, one of my favorite poets. This is what Wendell has to say. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled or curious, we might say, or interested or engaged or embodied is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings, the one that requires the pause, that requires a moment of return for reflection. The whirlpool, one might say. Our real work. What is our real work? And so we sit. We establish the feet, feeling the way down into the feet as they make contact with this earth. Move beyond the shoe, the sock, the slipper, the floor. Breathe down, grow roots. Feel the way the earth holds you. And let her fully embrace you. Soften the body. Let out a deeper, bigger sigh on the out breath. Settle into the seat that you've taken here. Right work. And if you are confused about this very moment, this very sitting here, still unmoving, doing what appears to be absolutely nothing, if you don't understand how this itself is one of the greatest acts of right work, real work, as Wendell Berry says, we're going to talk some more about it. And so we find the out breath and we let it instruct us. We let it settle us, soften us. And I can tell, for example, on the out breath, that my breath is not fully releasing, that I am yet contracted enough somewhere there in the abdomen, the belly. And I'm just recognizing that, not forcing or pressing. I'm just seeing if I can allow a little more release, a little more opening, softening up, lightening, awakening. Releasing the jaw, the shoulders. Tucking that chin just a bit so that the head rests effortlessly. This is the essential first instruction, knowing the body as the body. And that we come home to this body as refuge, as we talked about on Saturday. that everything that is needed for stability, for ease, for connection, for belonging, for love and compassion, it's actually right here. There's nowhere else to go. Right work, real work. And so we find the breath in the body. And then we breathe the whole breath. And from just this few moments of stillness, of intention, of silence, everything is more alive. You in this body, awake. And let's just breathe that wakefulness, inspiring us on the in breath and stabilizing, settling, grounding us on the out breath. Right livelihood, right work, real work, work that is meaningful, that is an exchange, right here. Right here in the exchange of the breath. What we take in, we send out. And we begin to understand as we enter more and more into the awakened heart, the awakened mind, and this settled, stable body. We begin to see that this is the essential beginning. Of all right action. We clear the view, no longer grasping, rushing, seeking, craving. We let it all go with each out breath. With each in breath, we are awakened, clear seeing, wholly present, and completely open hearted, embracing, allowing, receiving whatever comes. Whatever is known on the in breath, whatever we make contact with, a thought, a sensation, a sound, we breathe it in, we see clearly, and on the out breath, we let it metabolize. We let it sink into the skin, into the muscles, into the bone, into the cells, the whole mind body knowing. Real work, right work, right here. Can you feel the right exchange, the wholesome benefit and intention? Maybe you notice a sense of ease or calm, a sense of unity or connectedness. Maybe just a little clear seeing, remembering that all that rushing, all that tasking, all that doing by itself is not sufficient. But here, each breath is enough. We breathe in, and we breathe out. And then the meter has been set for the balance for the whole of the day. So then we let every task, every action come from this, be informed by this, and contribute to sustaining this ease, this balance, this presence for the whole of the day. That we begin in this place of refuge and that we spend our time in right livelihood, in right and real work, offering it, that we contribute this very ease, this very balance, this very presence, this very calm. In all we do. Right livelihood, right exchange. And then I'd like you to open to considering your day and the work in that day. Remember, we're making this idea of work larger than a career with money. We're thinking about the exchange. My guess is you have plans, you have tasks, you have contributions. Hopefully, you are also in receiving in this day. I'd just like you to look at this one day. And I'd like you to look at the contributions you can see in the day, the amount of time, the amount of energy, maybe even the amount of resource required. You may have to drive somewhere, you may have to wear a certain set of clothing. That's, of course, a resource as well. You're going to be utilizing a certain amount of inner and outer fuel. And I would just like you to reflect on it, really, not evaluate so much. And I'd like you to see if, notice what happens with this uh, easeful breath. Is the day too full? Is it too empty? Are the resources too high? Are they low so that there's not much exchange? As you reflect on this work, this right living, how does it feel? Is this the greatest contribution? Is this the one that is the best use of your resources and gifts? Is it uh, including a benefit that feels good and right and wholesome to you? Does it include time for yourself, whatever necessary needed time that is, as a resource as well, so that you can nurture the resource of your own being as well as to be a benefit to others? How is it balancing the resources in other ways? Not only the resource of you, but the use of other resources, gas, money, time, a consequence to others. Is this your greatest vision, your most wholesome right view of the way in which to live the day? And what would it take to bring it into greater balance? What would you have to add? What would you have to give up for this wise, loving, right, complete, and wholesome, wholehearted living? What would you add and what would you take away to get into the most beneficial exchange? And see if anything, what is in the way of that offering Is there some fear? Is there some anxiety about what would that mean if I moved into greater balance, greater exchange? Are we afraid of losing money, time, life? Are we afraid of surrendering pleasure or maybe even an addiction, a work addiction? Like, what happens if I'm not doing anything? It is often, says Wendell Berry, when we don't know what to do that we begin to look more clearly and find the path to right living and our real work. Then we become mindful, present, inquiring. It is in the don't know, in the pause, that we have time to really feel the truth. And then to live it. Remembering that on this noble path, by the very inquiry, we are of benefit. Whatever we see, the seeing is good. And may this practice today contribute to ourselves and to all beings. I'm going to check in on that practice. I'd love to see what um, you became clear about just in this one day, beginning with this right work of stillness. And can't we all see then its essential benefit? That really setting a path for the day, beginning with a moment or two of silence and stillness. Leanne, good morning.
Hi, that was one of my favorite practices ever. This is great. I
Fabulous.
yeah, I have this, I have the absolute pleasure of the work that I do really does connect people to doing good. So it's a very beautiful, my cup is full every day. And I have this group who wants to do this like offsite kind of give back event and make it kind of a food drive kind of thing. And so I've been just racking my brain over how I'm going to, why should we drive the truck and why do we bring it to them and why can't they go do it there and blah, blah, blah. And today I just realized, it's not necessarily about just packing the boxes full of food, but really educating people about hunger and educating them on what it takes and how hard it is to feed a family and how difficult it is in the struggle. And so this practice really gave me my solutions. And I don't know, I really am appreciative of that because I have 60 people who on the 21st of April are going to pack 200 boxes for families. And we're going to be able to have them understand and help them make a connection um, to something bigger than themselves. So this practice gave me all the logistics in my head. I probably did
Yay.
thinking, but it was so clear. Thank you so much.
Lovely. I'm so happy to hear that because that sounds like a really beautiful example of right
Yeah.
living, right? We're
Yeah.
going to touch others who are going to touch others who are going to touch others. And the wave of that is going to be big,
Yeah.
even when it's going to take a little resource. Remember, everything we do ultimately also has cost, right? That's a part of the exchange. There is going to be resource, the truck and the truck driver and the, right? Just like look at the resources utilized, for example, in the food we eat. When we realize the amount of food that we have access to, all of the food from all the places that we have access, all of the resource of the earth and itself, the farmers, the growers, the pickers, the baggers, the cleaners, the right, every morsel of food is literally like a golden gem, isn't it really? When we look at all that contributed, and here's now Leanne going to take all of that amazing resource, right, and educate others about the necessity of healthy, good food for all of us. What a beautiful livelihood that is. One, to inspire others, its own beauty. To Donna, which is understood to be, by the way, the first acts of generosity, always understood to be right livelihood. If you don't do anything else, and you just figure out ways to contribute to people, and that doesn't just mean money, does it? It means there I was at CVS parking lot, folks, yesterday with a woman who decided to come up and tell me about her life. And, for whatever reason, I am elected for this task in life in the middle of trying to get ready for the wedding. And what am I doing? I'm stopping.
You were like a mental health magnet in the parking
Yes,
lot.
I'm stopping. I'm saying, wait, you don't know where your car is? Let's find that. And then she tells me about her handicapped daughter and her sister who died at 7 when she was 17 years old. And right livelihood. Here I am. This is my work. I'm very clear about it. And why? Because I can say, I know. There are beautiful moments in life, and sometimes life is hard.
And I guess being grateful for that, right?
Yes,
I've always had
truly.
crystal clear clarity on doing work that, is in the nonprofit arena. I mean, so I think that just having that clarity is something also that I'm going to take today and be super grateful for, that I get to do it at the level that I do in the scale. So thank you.
Yes, and its merits, Leanne, remembering it isn't that we all don't have karmic debt as well. And the truth is, in right livelihood, we are spending up to half of a day in karmic repayment by the work we do, right? Doesn't mean we haven't gotten it wrong either. Of course we have, but there I am, my 8 or 10 hours a day, really making a contribution in the giving back, in the making offerings. I have a slight joke of my family. I have a lineage of butchers. My family were butchers. We're going to talk about that in a moment. From the point of view of the Buddha, not so great. Not so great. No, not the greatest. Butchers, no. Mm-mm. I watched my dad literally, right? kill things for dinner. And mafia. Okay, there's a little karmic debt going on there, folks. Right livelihood was not the greatest skill in my family tree. And look at what? Every day I get to contribute to not only my well-being, but the well-being of all those others before me, by the way, who kind of didn't get it. Just went, well, a job's a job. You know, you're killing things, it's okay. You're right. And again, I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just saying the consequence of that, by the way, it was known by them. They weren't Buddhists. That's not what they were. They were just going, I'm exhausted. I'm depleted. I hate my job. I hate my life. Right. And my brother is yet the carnage of that. You just like, you work because you work. You make money because that's what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you do, was how we were raised in the Midwest. It doesn't matter. You just do something. It doesn't matter if it's a good thing or bad. You just do a thing. What's the first thing my mother says when she gets on the phone with any of her children? Are you working?
How's work
Still
going?
working. Aren't you? You're working. I'm 67, going to be 68. Are you working? You're good. Right? Okay. Then everything, if you're working, that's right. And it isn't, I understand totally what her desire is. It's for my well-being, isn't it? It's for my happiness and my ease. I understand. And it's just about the work, what you do, how you, not just you just got to be okay. And the way, and don't we all, isn't this a part of our culture? Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're on the internet screwing others, particularly the elderly. It just matters that you're making the calls, and you got to make so many calls, and that's what you got to do. Right. And so we're going to look at that a little bit more closely. Before I do, I'm just going to check in to see whether anybody else has anything here on chat. Dennis says, just giving back to whoever comes my way, to be on the corner to give food to a homeless family. Yes, that's right. They're presented to you is actually how you might see that. Just like that woman in the parking lot. I don't see her as any accident at all. I think there's probably a woman right there who just needed to talk to a human being for a minute. Renee says, that sounds so worthwhile. What is the group that is doing this great work? Leanne works for a not-for-profit. Leanne, maybe you can share more with Renee about that. Of course, we do that in our small way at EMC with the St. Andrew's Basket and with the CRC contributions that we make and other ways of giving as well. And we're going to keep doing that also. Just to have a teenager, says Dennis, share about how they're feeling. Yes, right work for something they did. Yes, in a positive way, giving that mirror to a young person to say, you are being of a contribution. You are making a difference. How wonderful. Thank you all for that. I'm going to switch over to Kindle and see if I can't pull up chapter 8. We're going to start right at the beginning of chapter 8. I'm going to reduce this for a second so I can find Kindle. There it is. So look to your chapter 8. Has anybody had a chance? Here it is. Sama Ajiva. Sama Ajiva. Sama, we now realize, always means good, complete, right, wholesome, and is frequently shortened to that word right. I'm going to hit screen share so we can see it together. And then I'm going to hope you got a handle on this. Can everybody see that? I'm thinking you got it. So here it is, right livelihood. We're expanding, as we said, to right living, not just career-based, and right living. We're widening that even a little more to right exchange. What is the offerings? What are the receivings? What is the giving? What is the gifting? And that is continuous, not just clock time during work day, because that's a short, small, um, not noble window or path for this. And what Gregory says is that it is our relationship to an economy. That's exchange. That's actually what he means. Economy actually means the giving and taking. The right. That's economy. And he is saying, I'm using the word exchange because I want to get it off of our perception of money, not a right exchange. Is maybe doesn't have anything to do with money. The right exchange of me in the parking lot didn't have anything to do with, and then she gave me $20, which made it worthwhile or worthy. We are very confused, aren't we, in our culture about right work? Because what do we say to our college graduates? Oh, great, you're going to start at 90K. We don't look or investigate. Is this really the best use of your gifts? Is this the best use of you? Is this going to contribute something to the good? And we have to keep working on that recovery. In a capitalist society, which is consumer based, getting is where all of the energy is. Getting what I can consume, what I can, and we in a capitalist society, what does it say? Well, as long as you've got consumers, you're going to be good, because then you just become a seller and it all works out, except it is not that simple. And so we have to watch for that. That our values, our way of living, all are included in everything. And he's saying we have the privilege of the Zoom call. We have the privilege of this book. We have the privilege of language that we've been taught. We have the privilege of education. We have the privilege of dialogue. We have the privilege of the rights and privileges to all of that. And that we need to understand that's also included in right living. Of course, he's 100% correct. Right livelihood, his languaging, and most common, we're shifting to right living, is whatever affirms or sustains life. Okay, that's a nice big definition. It touches on, he says, areas that include comforts as well as that which includes survival. It is primal, right at the base, foundational to our being. We are, of course, in right living, always looking at that which we are taking or keeping, greed, the element of greed that comes into right living, as well as the generosity. And that these two conditions of greed and generosity really in their balance become the right exchange. Right, because we also are consumers, and that's our reality. We get to be, but there's a difference then, isn't there, between greed, keeping, hanging, wanting those toilet paper hoarders during the COVID that we understand actually throws off the balance of things, not only for themselves. Now I don't even know where to put the stuff. But for others who now do have no access, for example. Who stands in the way of my comfort, i.e. survival? That's often how that's perceived, isn't it? This is a bit of our delusion. If I'm not comfortable, somebody's a threat to me. And that in our right livelihood, we have to look more carefully at that, because sometimes we have to give things up. Sometimes we have to contribute things more in a moment, more than we are getting a thing. And we're often very uncomfortable doing that. I have never found, by the way, personally, that didn't work out for me. That whatever I gave, how much ever I gave, that there was always an exchange that was larger. Always. And it's never been otherwise. But we have a lot of survival fear around that. Like, if I give that, then maybe I can't get what I need. And he's saying that's basic to our brain stems, to our habit-natured minds. And that we just have to know that that's at play. The threat is understood there. our hive-like intensity of collective and global focus on acquisition, that's the getting, and survival is very big. Of course, we already know this. No question there. Hive-like is an interesting word, I thought. It was pretty. Ajiva, meaning living, and right then towards or affirming living is the in Ajiva, and he wanted to take the time to spell that out, I guess because of the Pali. He's a Pali translator, so that was probably interesting for him. And the non-harming is the first and most essential value in practice of right livelihood. I love that line. Non-harming, before anything, before you get this from it, it exchanges like that. You then get to go to overseas to travel. You're non-harming is the number one consideration. We're going to be doing that this week, looking at it in our exchanges. Is there any potential harm? And looking closely. It includes, he's saying here, our vocation that does not stress us too much. If it stresses us too much, it is not likely right living. I have to say, as a therapist, I've confronted a lot of crises. I do not find it generally too stressful. I have been very, very blessed to have a constitution and training that has allowed me not to get into constant reaction. Otherwise, no matter how much I loved it, it may not be right living. It may not be right livelihood. If every day I'm distressed and I can't write and I can't sleep and my work, this may not be right. And I love that inclusion. It has to also be right and of benefit in the exchange for you. And money is not the measuring stick of that. Livelihood that demands wrong speech, wrong action is simply wrong livelihood. If you have to lie in the work you do to make money, it's wrong. If you have to kill in order to make right life, it's wrong. And there is no exceptions. The Buddha is very clear about this, and it seems fairly reasonable to me. He goes all the way to pest control. I just had my Joshua's pest guys here, and I was like, oh, whoops.
I love Joshua's.
I know, right? And interestingly, I realized there's a consequence to them. These guys are around chemicals. We think about all those people exposed to pesticides, right? And this is a part of that exchange, is that if you are killing other things, it will also in its way kill you. Well, that's an interesting example, isn't it? I don't know how to, what?
How are we really supposed to contemplate this completely? I mean, it's a really interesting question, right?
Isn't it? And pest control came up, by the way. It was a real, yeah. And by the way,
I mean, thing
like,
that we're, like if you look at the world right now and the things we have to, I don't know. I don't know. I have to think about this a little bit because
there is no one answer. Remember, like, how do we work with this? What do you do when you have gophers in the yard? How do you relate to a garden that is planted to feed many and it's being eaten alive by insect, right? This is the exchange and balance that we're just inquiring about. The answer is not here. It says from right view. Ultimately, we will get to it. But I found that fascinating because, of course, I grew up in cornfields where they sprayed Monsanto pesticides on everything. That I don't, right, that I'm not more sick is amazing, really. The workplace that we're in shapes morale. It shapes how we act together. We become a hive, a community, even in our workplace. We can be numbed in that workplace. We can be suppressed in those workplaces, and those are also definitions for these are not good exchanges, and that we take a look at them more. Livelihood is narrower than general action because it includes that exchange, is what I want you to know. It is not just the way we act, it is the way we act in exchange or in relationship to others, ourselves, and the world. So that's what distinguishes right livelihood from right action. It raises difficult issues. Leanne just said that include a level of cultural and collective ignorance and delusion, like the pouring of those barrels of crude oil into the lake. That was a collective insanity. How was anybody imagining that that was not going to impact us? And there it was, billions and billions of gallons of oil going into a lake that we all drank from. And its consequence, right? We may feel trapped, he said. We may feel like there's no other job to do. We may, by virtue of our families and those histories, just take up a certain livelihood that is not right livelihood, or is based on what our families had done before us. And we know the impact of that as well. If livelihood is wrong, it will trouble our sleep, our digestion. It will hurt our backs. It will, and that we have to pay attention to the consequences of that as well as will the beneficial actions. He's saying generosity and the sharing of the Dharma. I'll talk about what I think that means in a moment. Work life, the skills and knowledge we have and our personal characteristics, of course, come into play. Of course, we all know that. He says, the Buddha himself says, the most important thing is to avoid doing the wrong things. That's that non-harming first. You don't do nothing till you find the perfect job. That's not the right livelihood. But he means at least pick something non-harming that isn't going to do damage to you, the others, or the earth, and that is essentially the first task, not to do things that can cause active harm. And there it is. The basic right livelihood is the abandoning or abstaining from the wrong thing. He says this is best. Just don't do that. You're already ahead. He says, I love this, scheming, talking, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain. This is wrong livelihood. Trickery, cajolery, insinuating, has to do with honesty, I think, dissembling, rapacity for gain upon gain. Being slick, being clever, using manipulation. Then we can think about every commercial ever made, couldn't we? Inviting lust and greed, the beautiful girls next to the new cars, right? That this is ultimately not affirming of life, and it does not affirm right speech or right action. And that we use this, don't we, in a consumer culture? You're going to be better with that new car, so you need that. You're going to get that girl. You're going to, with that new outfit, you're going to get the right job, which is right. And we propagate that horrifically in our culture, in a consumer culture. A lay follower should not engage in 5 types of business. I thought this was important to say, only because these are the direct lines out of the Pali Canon. Business in weapons that can cause harm. Business in living beings, trafficking or using other human beings, prostitution, slavery, all of those. Business in meat, business in intoxicants, and business in poisons. That's the pesticides, the things that ultimately will kill the earth and you and those who are using them. I don't want to talk too more about this. We get this idea of poisons and intoxicants of whatever variety. the internals, the externals, and both. We may not make weapons or intoxicants, but we could own stock that actually works with them. My son, I'm going to use him as a quick example. He went to our friend Sandy and said, I don't want any stocks that have to do with anything having to do with wars, that have anything to do with pornography, that have anything. And Sandy said, well, the good news is, Tanner, they do have a special certificate, a social certificate that says these are specific to making sure that they have been vetted so as not to be involved in any of those things. And of course, my son picked those stocks. Given the complexity, we understand that the interrelationship of ourselves with those things is happening, actually, isn't it? It's to what extent is it happening? Reflecting on our sources of income, I think our practice today was really that inquiry. I don't want to make it about money. I want to make it about resource exchange. Money's just one. I think that others are more important, even in the day. What I give and what I receive, and is it balanced? Is it contributing something to the good? Yeah, that we can see our livelihoods as our first act of generosity, as our first act of contributing to the Dharma. I love this line, and in fact, it's true. Does that mean that you have to carry a Pali text or a Bible or the Talmud or around? And the answer is, of course not. It means you have to be it. Ugh, easier to carry it. It means you have to be it. That the exchange of the Dharma is, in fact, one of the greatest livelihoods. And does that mean that we have to be skillful in any kind of scriptures, or no? And does that mean we are ultimately living them? And the answer is yes. And so are you all today actually propagating, cultivating, and living the Dharma? Well, of course you are. Of course you are. You made a choice to be here. And that's out of that kindness, that compassion, that pause, that looking for the exchanges and the balance. We're going to do that all week. What is the balance? Where am I off and where am I on? Does it mean you don't get a whole day to rest? Absolutely you do. That likely means you had several days of not rest. That said, today's the day. That can still be right balance, can't it? Even if one day looks like I was just relaxing, refueling, renourishing today, but tough week, right? For many who only get a day often. So the opportunity for dana, for making a contribution, for generosity, and for sharing the Dharma, those are understood to be the two greatest livelihoods. That to which I am generous, contributing, and to the extent that I am also sharing the Dharma. That means living in the truth of what? Equity, justice, kindness, and compassion, more than any ism there might be. Income and values. We have there is no reckoning of income and values for us. I think we are lost, and I do mean that. That what our teachers make, appalling, what our nurses make, more. I don't think we have any reflection of what the beauty of the work we do to monetary exchange. Don't think it exists in our culture. In fact, I'm going to say we're whacked. I think we've got it all backwards. Farmers can barely survive. This is insane. I think we only have to look at Jeff Bezos. Is that his name?
Bezos.
Bezos. Thank you. I don't even want to get that right. Neither do I wish the person harm. I want us to look, however, at what we are investing in, what we are investing in, and what that exchange is, and what does it cost? What does it cost? Because, by the way, folks, it is costing us. It is not like that person's over there separate in some way doing something. No, no, no. He couldn't do it without our participation. And then how are we participating? And that's for your reflection. Again, it's not with judgment or condemnation. Do you understand what that exchange is and its consequences? And that is right living. Get it? Right living. Let's get it off the job thing. I think it's way too small. How does the work we or each of us do contribute to the well-being of others? Does it contribute to society? Does it contribute to safety and comfort? Does it contribute to social harmony, equity, or environmental protection? Does this work I or we do nourish us in others' wholesome mind states and values? What are the values that are being lived? I'm going to go forward because this is all. The Buddha himself came up with 4 conditions for real happiness in right livelihood. They are these: persistent effort, consistent, that we're not just, it's not a one-day deal, that we are being mindful, watchful, that we are propagating friendships. I love that, right? Rather than adversities, rather than enemies, rather than those who are angry with us because they feel there's been a poor exchange. And is it balanced? Are we easeful, not stressed, and enjoy? As a result, these are the factors that the Buddha said this will lead with these considerations and conditions to right living. Is it an effort I can consistently make, or is it one I can only do for a day and then I fall apart? Probably not right living. Probably not right living. We only have, I'll give you an example of this. We only have airline pilots work 3 days in any, I think it's 10-day or 2-week cycle. There's a reason for that, isn't there? Right? Because the work is so strenuous. The tax, by the way, on the mind body for pilots, as an example, is horrendous. They are mostly retired in their 50s because their bodies are racked from all of that air travel. And they can't do it even for very long without suffering consequence. They have to get significant time off. And there's a consequence to that. Is the work that we're doing developing skills? Does it take too much or too little from us in the way of exertion? Does it require discernments? Are we in a job where we have to be reflecting on what is the good of this? What is its benefit? And that we look at that we actively ask those questions. Our livelihood includes nurturing and protecting what has been earned, that we do not squander, I think is the idea here. That if you're working hard to make money, and this is what my brother sees in the casino, doesn't he? He sees squandering. If we're working so hard to make the money, that we don't just then invest it in unskillful ways or in ways that are then going to be causing harm. Right? So you work hard to get your money. Well, it doesn't end there. It says right living requires, and what are you doing with the money? And if you're just going to the casino, if you're going to buy drugs, if you're going to do something unskillful, that also is an aspect of right living. Not only how you make the money or the exchange, but how you spend it. That's the balanced livelihood. And I like that idea. Balancing the costs against the benefits. can we recognize our participation in a debt-enabled economic system that we actually help people be in debt? And that we say, no, that's fine. You're raising your debt score. And that in some way is harming. We have to be careful about that and pay careful attention. Balance, again, a key word here for living. Is it preventing harm and contributing to the good, both for you personally and for our loved ones, and then for society? Excess spending, again, he's referencing that. He's saying we're way out of whack here on our spending and on what we think we need. That is not, we're off balance in this. He talks personally about his own, not having to always go get new clothing or the new item, right? It's one of the reasons I decided to stay off of Amazon, except for essentials. And if I could get them somewhere else, that I do, because I'm recognizing the imbalance of that. I don't want to go over this. He does name drunkenness, gambling, and other evil doings as, of course, wrong living. And of course, we understand that. There's the weapons, the poisons, the intoxicants, the killing, all as he names them again. The greed, how we nurture greed, he says, is something we have to look at. And this propagation of you got to have it, get it. I'm getting it, you get it too. We need that new thing or item, and without recognizing its consequence. We've only got another minute or so. I think I don't really want to come back to this chapter. It's a big one, however, but I really want to focus more on some of the others. I think we understand the idea of this, so I'm just going to stop here. Are you understanding what I'm saying about this right living? That career is one small definition, and we tend to narrow this noble path to right career and money. I don't think so. I think it's as big as all exchange. This week, I'd like you to look at that exchange. What are you offering? What are you getting? Is that balanced in the exchange? If it isn't, why isn't it in its balance? And what are the consequences of that? And is the work you're doing fulfilling? Is it fulfilling you? Is it fulfilling others? Is it a contribution, or is it contributing intentionally or by accident to harm? We have a great friend. He works for Northrop Grumman, and those guys make missiles. This is a brilliant guy. I love him, and he is not well. And he is not well because of the stress of his job at Northrop Grumman. He has a very, very high position. He makes a lot of money doing it. And by the way, I don't think he's going to likely live to enjoy it. And that makes me really sad. Really sad. I want us to look at this, right? Do I say this to him? I do. I'm worried about you. Do I say this to my brother in the casino? I do. I'm worried about you and your well-being. And your well-being. And sometimes, right, we're ripe and awakened enough to hear it, and sometimes we're not. And we have all, haven't we all, been in imbalance? We have all been in imbalance in relationship to our work. I want us to look at that this week. Look for where the imbalances are. I'm going to ask about it next week. I also want you to look at where the balance is. How do you know the right exchange? How do you feel it? How do you feel it? Can you feel it in the ease, in the sense of effortlessness of exchange, in the rightness of the exchange? Let's sit together for just a moment. So we come back to the breath. And we begin right exchange right here. A full, open in breath and a full release on the out breath. We're going to look for that perfect exchange in our day. And may it result in greater balance, in greater generosity, in greater self and other nourishment. May it result in a feeling of wholeness, of community, of belonging. May it offer us enough that we can be happy, truly happy in our right living. May we be filled with kindness, compassion, and right living. And may it contribute to making us well and others. May we be peaceful and at ease. And may we be truly glad and grateful for this beautiful exchange that so many of us have cultivated. Really quite beautiful. May we walk this noble path together. Together to the end of suffering and to true happiness and ease. And may our practice today be of benefit to all beings everywhere, without exception, omitting none, and for sure, including you. So be it. Thank you all so much. We're going to go on to, though there's lots more opportunities for reading, it will affirm what we've been talking about this morning. If you see anything that you think is inconsistent, these are just some practices he was offering, and I feel like we've incorporated them. Then he gives a lot of examples. Right medicines. Do we all have access to them, as an example? Right shelter. Do we all have access to housing? And of course, we already know the answer, don't we? And we know that in some way then there is not right living. It is off in whatever way it is. And then what do we do? What do we do as a contribution to making it balanced, to making it right? We're going to be moving on to chapter 9 next Tuesday. That is right effort, Sama Vayama. And I will look forward to reviewing that and investigating that some more. But we will come back next Tuesday and Saturday. We're going to stay with Right Livelihood, Right Living on Saturday here in the garden, where I will be here at 7:30. Please join us. And then we'll move on Tuesday to Right Effort. All right, everyone. So good to see you all. Dennis, always good to get to see your face. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all with this beautiful inquiry. Everyone be well. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great day, you guys.
You as well.